Hey guys, Jarvis here with Itsnotjunktv, and unlike most days where I'm just hanging out amongst a pile of scrap, I think today we're going to take this pile of scrap and turn it into a bucking machine that I've been needing. Uh, if anybody's been watching my channel, you know I cut and burn firewood for heat during the winter, and one of the worst tasks of that is the bucking process, bucking the logs up into size. To me, it's the worst. I can split it all day long, but to stand with a saw and buck it up into chunks is very tedious and just bugs me. So I think we're going to take this pile of scrap that I picked up off the curb, turn it into a machine that I can use to semi-automatically buck up logs while I kind of do other things. So hang tight, we'll get started. We'll just make this up as we go. It may work, it may not. Alright, let's take a look at what we got here to work with. Yeah, that's just an old treadmill frame, but I think we can use it as a feed system. I got a couple of these contact switches. I believe we can set this up to where it feeds up exactly how much we want. There's my bird friend back every episode. Hey, I hope you guys enjoy it. But anyway, I'm gonna try to use this electric chainsaw here as my cutting source for now. I got a brand new chain for it. Bar seems to be pretty good on it. So I'm gonna get that. I'm gonna have to also come up with a different oiler, because that's one of the problems with those little Remingtons, is the oiling system on them and it's kind of non-existent. So we'll have an external oiler, but I'm gonna get this thing set up. I got some feet there for the front because I kind of want it at an angle. So I think that's where we'll start. Let's see if this thing will work. It's sat outside for a while. I've had it for quite a while, and it's sat in a scrap pile. So if that don't work, we'll come up with a different motor, because the system itself, them Blue Jays, I swear, but the system, the pulley itself, seems to be free. Needs oiled, of course. Everything's sat around. But just if I could just get it to turn enough to feed this forward, that'll end up being pretty good. But let's start with that, and then we'll show you what I'm looking at on the front of this. Okay, all right, so I've got this set up. This is about how high I want it off the ground. I don't know, 10 inches or so here on the front, and drag logs up on the back, let them feed up. And now we got to determine where I want to stop and where to saw. But first, I want to see if it's going to work. Let me swing this camera around some more. I'm going to take off this, move this, because I do think ultimately I'm going to cut this front section off and just leave it back here to this support. I think that's what we'll do, and that'll keep the motor supported. If we gotta put some additional bracing in there, that'll be all right too. But if this transformer, it don't seem like it's been wet, but maybe. But if I can get this motor to run with the control panel, which I saved, we should be able to just pull and run that as a hot, typical DC motor. And just either way, I'm going to have to rewire it to where it runs the opposite way, because right now it's going to run the way people run on it, which is this way right here. But that's not the way we're going to use it. So let me fool around with this wiring a little bit, and we'll give this part a test. I tried not to tear anything up as I was taking it apart, so let's see if this will run even. And then Then we'll determine what we do next. We gotta see. I know it looks like a whole lot of nothing, but and it probably is, but let's see if we can get this motor to turn, and if we can get this belt to spin, then we'll determine what we need to do next. All right, I think I got this thing wired back up to the way it was. I went through and cleaned everything, made sure everything, all the contacts, nothing was corroded up so bad that it may cause it to short, and it probably still will. This thing is laid in the weather for a long time, long time. So more than likely this will all have to be bypassed. I'm gonna have to move this motor as I'm looking. I was hoping to do this without a whole lot of welding, but I don't see that happening. I think I'm gonna have to. That's okay. To get it the way we want it. I still think we're on the right track to something here. So I say I'm gonna try to plug this thing in and see that it probably blows the breaker out here. If it doesn't, I'll be super duper surprised, but there's probably not much hope for it. Let's see. Holy moly, that light come on. It's got power. It's tracking weird. Does that button? I'm pretty sure that button worked. Huh. Well, who would have thought? Who would have thought that that would have actually worked after sitting in the weather all that time? Now, it don't sound great, but it has sat. This needs to be adjusted. See where that belt's starting to run over? Where it's clean there. So I'm gonna have to do some adjusting on that to get that to go over. And then, I guess we'll flip-flop that power wire, the red and the black, and see if we can get this thing to run towards us. If we get that far, then it's on to the next step. And that'll be moving all this without tearing anything up. Moving it, and we gotta move this motor because I want this top platform. See where it's at with the belt. So I want my cutter arm and stuff to be pretty much on either, well, probably on this other side where the saw's going to be. So it may even have to be elevated. All right, still figuring. That's why I said we don't have any drawings for this. We're just going as we go. So let me see if I can get this belt. If we can get this thing spinning better, then we'll go on. Alright, I went ahead and adjusted this belt and got it to where it'll track, and it's even down there, fairly even up here. I went and reversed these wires. I didn't burn it up before, so this will probably do it here. If I'm not, I hope I'm wrong. I hope it's just like a typical DC motor, and reverse the polarities and you reverse the motor. I want it to run towards us. So, while I've got you here, I might as well. I don't see any let's see if this, well, power light came on. Let's see, the reason I think it should work is because, well, these don't, the only two wires going into this. I don't see no exciter wires. There we are. All right, so we've got a working conveyor. we can run her any way we want to, which right this direction is what we want. All right, next we're gonna have, I say we, well, you're gonna follow along and watch, but this stuff here on this platform needs to go. This I'm not so much worried about. With the motor, I want to drop down, so that means cutting here, and cutting these two supports off here. This needs to go anyway, because, well, where's your cut off pieces going to fall? But that's a good. Now we're making progress. What I need to do next is I need to take a continuity tester and see which direction is this on. Hopefully this is on, this is off. And that way when the piece gets to the length that I want it to, it'll come down here and there'll be a stop that the log hits, kills the conveyor belt, and then we can get to the cutting part of it. Sorry about that, I got mosquito bugs that are destroying me today. So, but we got this far. Let me start stripping some stuff, and let's see about how I'm gonna lay this out and get all this moved underneath somehow so it's out of the way. Well, here we are after some cutting and grinding and beating and banging. We got everything pulled off. Got a whole front platform now to work off of. I had thought about cutting this off somewhere back in here, but I think having this, if I don't cut the palm of my hand off, drive motor can get attached down here. It's got adjustment on it, so we can adjust as the belt tends to wear, or if it does. If we need to add a little more tension to it, but that'll get put in place. I wanted to see, because like I told you in the beginning, we're doing this all together. I've not pre-looked at nothing here. But I would like this to be somewhere in here, somewhere. And it just be able to pivot. It's got to open up enough to where you can get the log in. And we'll have to have some kind of backstop over here, because if not, it'll just kick and throw everywhere. But I think we're onto something here. I know the mosquito bugs, I don't know how they are at your place, but we got a couple days of rain a few days ago, and it has made them atrocious. There's the word of the day, atrocious. They're pretty bad, but yep, let me get that. I think I'm gonna have to bust out the welder, clean some things up first. I want to get these legs welded on, get this motor put in place, find a place for the electronics, make sure I got this back working, the conveyor back working again, and then I think it'd be smart then to move on to the cutting side of it. Let's get all this done, get this back where it needs to be, and then we can move forward, because I don't know that I'm going to paint it and do all that. I don't think it's worth all that. This is an experiment. I don't think this little saw is going to be exactly what I want, so more than likely it might expand and we end up making a whole nother contraption. So, but we'll see. Let's try this first. I'm not worried about speed. I'm just worried about not having to stand there and babysit it for 20 minutes each cut or whatever. So, but when we come back, I'll get all this done and we'll move on to the next part. All right, there, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. It's the next day for me, just a blink of an eye for you guys. But when I got in from work today, I went ahead and I mocked this up yesterday. It took me a little bit. I got it on some wheels so I can just grab it by the rear, pick it up and roll it. They're not much of wheels, but I can always add bigger wheels later. They were part of the frame of the treadmill here, so they just got repurposed. Got that all welded in, got the motor welded in. Need to adjust the tension on the belt because I left all that on there. So next, I don't think I'm gonna bother putting the electronics or testing any of that again because, well, we've already seen that work. So I think next I'm gonna start gathering some pieces up, and I'm still deciding on where the saw is gonna be. I do know I want the piece to come out here and fall from the end, so I want the cut saw to be somewhere right in here. That way I can have a stop out here with my switch on it that stops the conveyor. So I got to determine in here where I want to set the saw, how I'm going to mount the saw. The original bracket that I ended up taking off of here, which is set up pretty cool because it just sort of snaps on. But I do believe it's a bit tall for what I need. So I'd either have to cut this notch deeper, which really isn't a problem, I don't think, because I'd really need the saw. I think I'd want it somewhere right in there. I think somewhere right in there, about that height. So that means the front pieces on there would have to go. Yeah. Let me grab a Sharpie and I'll do some sketching on here, and I'll show you what I'm thinking. All right, after much contemplation and a safety meeting, I think we're gonna go with this bracket on this side, and that being welded on. We can take. Well, actually, I'm gonna leave that because I think I can attach a spring assist, run a bolt through here and a spring up to help pull this thing back up. But I think that's where we're gonna go. Try to find something to work as a pivot for my little chainsaw. I ended up cutting a little piece of that hand guard off of there. Bear with me because I'm doing this one-handed and holding the camera. So I want it to sit somewhere right in there. So there's your center hole. And I want it to be able to, I want it to kind of slide back and forth in this little notched out area right there before. That way you can pick up on it and drop it down on the log, because I'm gonna have a handle attached out here through this hole in the front of the bar. So that's what I got to figure out now, because I want this thing to drop just below that top rail when it's down. So somewhere right there is where it'll stop. If I had a bolt to throw in there, that would probably hold it. But something, I want it to move. I don't want it to be static. I want to be able to slide this thing back and forth this way a little bit. That don't make you too sick. So yeah, that's what we're looking at. So let me contemplate on this a little bit. I'll get this dude welded on, because I think that's where I'm going to keep it, because when it cuts, that'll leave quite a bit hanging over this way, and it should just flip off and fall down to the ground. That's what I'm hoping for. So let's see what I can come up with for a pivot. So hold tight, we'll get this welded on and get this to where it'll at least sit in there, and we can get an idea of what we got going on. Well, here we are. Rendition number 3, I think, is what we're on. All right, so while we're back here, let me show you what I found. You see what I've got my saw sitting in here. This was the fold down control panel. That's what this bracket was for the original treadmill. Well, when you start stripping plastic off of it, it's got this nice little notched area that this handle sits down into. It's already a decent pivot. I think if I can get this thing wedged up in here, and then maybe wedge, of course we want it square with that, with our end of our log, so it makes it going into the splitter a little bit easier. But I think I need to cut it down a little bit, and I think, yep, see that's a little long, so I think I'm gonna cut it off right there where that mark is, and may end up taking like a big old hose clamp and running around the body and then around this thing to keep the front down, and then wedge the back. I don't know, but that's where we are so far. My finger being in there, is it? There we go. So that'll come down. Now, next thing I need is a fence. There's got to be something for this log as this thing's spinning and cutting into it. Well, that's not going to sit there. This is difficult to do, holding the camera. Anyway, let me come back over here. So this will come up, log will come in. Come down, start to be cut, which of course probably be up here. But there needs to be some kind of fence for this log to be pushed back into. So as this thing comes down and hits it, and not only that, I need it directed, you know, if I just lay logs on this thing, I need it to be funneled up to where they hit this saw right. I don't want to be standing here messing with it. I'd rather just lay the log on there, maybe push it up against that fence, and then let this feed it the rest of the way. But I think we're on to something here. But let me, I think my next step is going to be, we gotta figure out this fence. And I think what we're gonna do, get this out the way. So I think what I need to do is I'm gonna come across here with a support, and then come up off of that support, and then use angle iron to create a fence just up off this belt. It ain't going to be laying on the belt, but just off of it, and I'll have to do something similar down there on the back side to create a fence and a funnel, so this brings the logs up here, and then it's got somewhere so it don't get just spun right off of the whole contraption. That's where we are. That's welded in. None of the welds are pretty, but this is all just for concept right at this moment. If it actually ends up working, then we might, I say we, I might break it down and try building it a little bit more, a little bit better materials, and not all recycled. But for this, I think this is going to work. So let me get this next batch of bits and bobs figured out, and when we come back, we'll see where we're at. All right, a bit of a progress report on where we're at here. Now it's been another day, another 8 hours of work, and then home to here. So here we are. I've got my stop put in. Not the prettiest of welds, but it's working. There's my bracket from the saw. I went ahead and put the control panel bracket back in. That way I can hook the control panel back up. There's a diverter here to keep anything from getting into this pulley. So that's all rolling. I need to adjust that back out, get that back centered where it needs to be. But yeah, there we are. So let's see this stop a little closer. I ended up taking it all the way down to the end. It don't ride on the belt, just above it. I don't want it to cause any friction wear. It'd be terrible to get this thing all put together and it work good and tear the belt up in the first month. But that's where we are. I think next we'll be going ahead and getting the motor part going. Go ahead and get this to where it's set up on a contact switch that'll shut it off when it gets up to this end and overhangs. So I'll set the saw in there temporarily, and then start laying out my wiring. And then when we come back, I think when I come back to start laying out for the stop, we'll come back and we'll work on that together. Laying the wiring out and welding all this. If you're wanting to learn welding, there's channels out there to learn welding. I'm not here to teach that. I'm just here to invent, and hopefully you guys like to follow along. If you've not hit like and subscribe, be sure and do that for me. That really helps me out. I'm trying to hit that 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year, just as a milestone. I've been doing this for a few years now, and now I think it's time to go full bore and start being consistent and doing the 2 videos a week and trying to keep you guys entertained. And I'm always doing something anyway, so I might as well film it. But let me get this wiring laid out. When we come back, we'll start playing with the contact switch, and you guys can follow along while we get into that. All right, well, here we are with all the electrics tied up where they need to be. I've got the conveyor running, got the belt back centered out where it needed to be. I run into one little problem. I thought I had some proximity switches, and they wound up being just contact switches. So now I gotta find a contact switch. But got this part over done, and I think because it's starting to get a little long, I think we're going to go ahead and end this video here. If you've stuck around this long, I do appreciate it. Hopefully you're getting something from it. This bucking machine is coming right along. We will be back on this one. Next video, I think, is kind of a unique one. I picked up a lot of Zippos, most of them from the 30s and 40s. So I think they need some work. They need gone through, and so if you stick around for the next episode or next show, you're going to see that one. But for this one, I'm going to have to get on the Jungle website and see if I can't find some proximity switch to go on here, or one of my favorite little junk shops down the road here. I might be able to find one. But that'll have to be in the next episode. Then we'll get into the chopping part of it, and hopefully the testing. If you've not hit like and subscribe, be sure and do that for me. Still trying to hit that 1,000. I know I've said it, but I want to get there. I'm now signed up for a cup of coffee. If you'd like to buy me a cup of coffee, I would appreciate that too, because I could use a cup of coffee about right now. But thanks for sticking around this long. If you finished out this video, until the next one, you guys take care. I'm Jarvis, and this is Itsnotjunktv. Until the next one, take care.